I remember when I took up the sword. I remember when the black work began. Did it not first appear as the purest of pursuits, to rid the world of its horrors, to clamour and rage behind divine steel, to turn abomination to smouldering carcass, and wrench shut the festering wound from whence it crawled? So sure was I of the sanctity of my great errand, that I christened it as highest glory, the holy quest, the only quest. I believed it so, even as my good name became synonymous with madness.
One by one they coiled and writhed at my feet. Their corpses fed a mountain of blight that I alone ascended. But so furious rang the tempo of my rampage that the wretched staircase began to shudder with each new victim, strained further by the weight of my own foolish pride, until the merest whisper of wind threatened to unmake it, even as it scratched at the gates of heaven itself like a sick fingernail. And when it finally toppled, with its architect still blindly labouring at its peak, it fell into a lake of blood.
Fuck this game. You would suffer less excruciating pain from trying to teabag roadkill on a motorway from a speeding vehicle. You'd find more tasteful content in Ted Bundy's fridge. I could eat out of the medical waste bin for the gastroenterology department in the middle of a stomach flu epidemic and still shit out something less offensive than this. The fucking Jigsaw killer invents games that do less damage than Red Lake. If I had a mouse hovered over this game's start button in one hand and the trigger to a C4 cluster hooked up to a fucking orphanage, an eternity in the lowest circle of the devil's burning pit would be preferable to ever clapping eyes on this utter fucking catastrophe again. I'd rather live out the rest of my goddamn days in John Goodman's rectum. I would rather dip my cock in jellyfish venom, rip it off, and fuck myself into a pain-induced coma with it. I would rather smear myself in honey and crawl into the den of a hibernating bear singing Nickelback's greatest hits while I pissed in its eyes. I would rather develop a bowel condition where everything I ate turned into poisonous snakes. I would rather go to pilot school and spend years getting my pilot certificate and slowly work my way up to flying commercial airliners, and then, on my first flight, instead of flying the plane, I would climb on top of it and shoot the fucking wings off, and then climb onto the back and just rape the fucking thing in the exhaust hole as it crashed into the goddamn mountains. There's a reason I saved Red Lake until the final episode of Endgame. There's 100 fucking reasons. I hoped I'd die before I ever finished the series, which would save me from ever having to touch the bloody thing ever again. And if not that, if death itself could not find the mercy to spare in its busy schedule, I thought maybe Red Lake and I would kill each other in combat, and years from now, archaeologists would find our remains locked in mortal struggle. That's the fossilised remains of a T-Rex and a Triceratops that killed each other fighting, by the way. It's not a tasty cookie. I mean it. If you see this, don't fucking eat it. Do you understand? It's worth $10 million. Do not eat it. But the biggest reason that Red Lake is here as the series finale is really very simple. This is the worst game I have ever played in my life. This is it. The bottom of the sewer, the last ladder rung before oblivion. You literally cannot stick your tongue any further down the toilet and taste anything worse than Red fucking Lake. Now, for those of you that have been here since the early days and seen me play this utter curse on mankind, you might think I'm overreacting a little. Sure, it's a horrible game. Sure, nobody in their right goddamned mind would ever want to touch it with a sickening 300-meter long apparatus made of other people's fingers. But the worst game ever made? Fraggers, surely all these crappy horror games are getting the better of you. Maybe you need to reacquaint yourself with Bubsy 3D or Superman 64 or E.T. on Atari. No, I say to you, as much as playing those train wrecks would feel like a fortnight in the Maldives compared to another minute in the company of Red Lake. You haven't seen what it's capable of. Not yet. For those of you that are fairly new to the channel and have no idea what any of this is about, I strongly suggest you catch up with the initial attempts to conquer Red Lake before we go any further. I've linked the relevant videos in the description box below. Go ahead, I'll wait. You didn't bloody watch them, did ya? I don't know why I bother, honestly. Fine, I'll recap it now, alright? Bloody lazy. Here's what we already know. Red Lake presents itself as a first-person shooter, but possesses the fundamental problem of arming you with a pistol that cannot hit anything from under 10 feet away, and has a firing rate so appalling that the Marquis de Sade would write a short story about fucking it. This complication is aggravated by a motley crew of enemies that take upwards of 5 shots to kill, and only have to be in the same general area as you to inflict grievous wounds that you have no method of healing. After dying incredibly quickly, you will also discover that the checkpoint system is really more of a terrifyingly broken time machine that warps you to random points in the game while simultaneously refusing to replenish any of your ammo reserves. Couldn't kill all those dogs with 30 bullets? Have fun trying with 6? Start a new game, you say? Well, let's ignore how utterly fucking unreasonable that is for a moment and look beyond to why even that is an unprecedented pain in the piss pipe. Exhibit A, unskippable opening cutscene. Exhibit B, unskippable opening cutscene that randomly repeats itself without sound, just in case you want to experience what it's like to play Red Lake as a deaf person. Red Lake doesn't discriminate, it hates you whatever the fuck you are. Exhibit C, a solid 30% chance of being spawned upside down and having to repeat the entire shite pile of a process again. It's like a fucking lucky dip, and the jackpot prize is another crack at playing a game already in more unusable pieces than a frog in a blender. And I mean, this is before we even get onto the general problems of Red Lake, like how it's uglier than dog shit in a rubber dress, like how the voice acting is a heavily accented mumble so inaudible that you'd need fucking EVP equipment to pick it up, like how the enemy and stage layout is so jarringly random that you could use it to ethically pick tributes in the Hunger Games. But even with all that considered, even with taking all of those ingredients and nuking it in the oven for 30 minutes to create a dinner that Satan himself would scream and hurl his shit at like a panicked monkey, the sum of those parts does not justify calling Red Lake the worst game ever made. As I touched on last time on Endgame as we ploughed through the patron saint of sociopaths everywhere, Taken, it takes an extra element to make a game truly unplayable. Design is not enough. Ineptitude is not enough. Gross professional misconduct is not enough. Every aspect, every component, every part needs to be distilled into a poison so purely spiteful, so utterly abhorrent that it transcends even hatred itself. Settle in and hold your loved ones close, lovelies. You're about to see evil in its purest form. So finally, after what seems like an eternity of carefully edging through the game, conserving your ammo, battling with the horrendous shooting mechanics as best you can, finally you reach the Red Lake itself. You're dropped into one massive map, multiple kilometers wide, and told to follow the markers to set up monitoring equipment at specific points. The game warns you to be on your guard as, by night, the enemies you have already come to despise come out to play, with your only safety zones lying in a number of scattered bonfires. For the first time, Red Lake also introduces healing. You can find and eat mushrooms to restore your health, but watch out, some of them are poisonous. Ha 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 ha, fuck off, you pitiful clutch of weasel bollocks. So this is it. One last task, one last push, and then you're free. Off we go. Into hell. Now initially the freedom afforded to you by this new open world setting is quite refreshing. Your asthmatic sprint meter quickly lets you in on the fact that you're going to be making your way around this godforsaken pool of nightmares in about the same time as most pensioners or athletically inclined landmine victims. But at the very, very least, it's a change, and change in Red Lake is irrefutably a good thing. Or so you foolishly believe. You journey for an uneventful day and a night to reach the first and closest marker. The dog comes out of thin fucking air and immediately starts tearing you to shreds, but somehow you barely escape with your life. Well, don't pay any attention to that health meter. It very rarely works in this stage, probably because it doesn't expect you to live particularly long and doesn't really see the point in keeping track of your inevitable sprint towards the grave. You set up your first station, use your first bonfire, and begin your exhausting trek to the second waypoint. After another quiet evening limping through the wilderness, morning breaks, and only now, after about 20 minutes spent on this stage, do the true scale of your problems start to become apparent. You hear the birds first. An angry, ugly scraping sound getting progressively closer. Just as you turn to face them, you also catch another familiar noise, and then, all at once, you see it. There is a fucking army of crows and ghost cats bearing down on you across the plains. And even if you stood any chance of hitting them at this range, you simply do not have enough ammo to kill them all. You can't outrun them, you can't deter them or save yourself in any way, so what else can you do except die? Die and reload your checkpoint. But soon enough, they're back. Sometimes with dogs, sometimes with cats, sometimes with both, but always led by those motherfucking birds. As soon as you hear them, you are going to die, because you just do not have the bullets, the speed, or the range to kill them all. Contrary to what you're told, the bonfires don't protect you from a single pissing thing. Those mushrooms, as uncharitably sparse as they are, do a shit-lot of good if you can't kill the thing that's bleeding you dry. And so you die, again and again, over and over, always just before you can reach your next checkpoint, mobbed to death by an impossible army of lake beasts. And maybe the cruelest part of this entire stage is that it's the only place in the game where the checkpoint system works reliably. It always puts you right back where you saved, and you cling on to that little sliver of hope that you can be faster this time, that the birds won't come for you today because you were so close, so fucking close the last time, and you just know that you're one good try away from making it to that next marker. But the truth is, you're not. You are better off starting the entire thing over, because once that mob has your blood in its nostrils, it remembers where you are and how to get to you. No matter how many times you reload the game, they will find you. No matter where you go, no matter what you do, no matter how many you kill, they will hunt you down and murder you. And sooner or later, you will run out of ammo and run out of bonfires, and you will have to start again from the very beginning. Has there ever been a more perfect example of unmitigated hopelessness than this? I thought so. I was truly driven to the depths of fucking despair by Red Lake. But, piece by bloody piece, I began to build a strategy around the many bugs that infect this unrivaled virus of a game. Now, your first advantage is the bonfires. They won't protect you, but if you can make it to one with the dark army chasing you, you can reload and they'll be gone, buying you a precious minute or so to make your next move. Second, there is more ammo to be found. Still nowhere near enough to fight them all, don't get me wrong, but just enough to conceivably be able to protect you between checkpoints if you're very lucky. The first stash is by a crashed plane, and you need to use your early game quiet period to get there as fast as you fucking can. Otherwise it might as well be sitting in the middle of a track in Gran Turismo for all the good it'll do you. The other cache is hidden under a tower in the middle of bloody nowhere. But watch out, because it's one of the birds' favourite places to ambush the shit out of you. Just look at this. Just look at this goddamned mess. Now you have just enough ammo to give you the slimmest of chances, and I mean the slimmest of fucking chances, because if the forest pals and their rabid winged standard bearers get wind of you, there is no amount of bullets that can save you, because you just can't shoot far enough, fast enough to take them all out. Your only hope is to pray for groups of 3 or less. Any more than that and you are already dead. Give up, start again. You're only hurting yourself more by trying, believe me. And even that is not the end of your troubles, because after riding your luck, clinging on for dear fucking life to your luck for nearly 3/4 of an hour, like you've somehow enraged it and ridden it through a baby oil factory and out into the rain in the middle of an earthquake violent enough to cause the 7th and final major extinction level event, even after that, Red Lake will make you run from the final marker all the way back to your truck. And believe me, if you have somehow evaded the main raiding party of the Woodland Militia up until this point, your impossibly good fortunes are about to book a long vacation off to the exotic island of Go Fuck Yourself. How I reached that goddamn truck I will never know. I stumbled into the marker with what looked like Dr. Moreau's Royal Guard on my tail, desperately trying to pick them off with my last few remaining bullets as I sprinted away in short, feeble bursts. But I got there. After a solid fortnight of heartbreak and rage, I got there. There's a feeble driving stage to see you out of the game, but honestly by that point it'll feel like playing chess against a shoe. It's so utterly rudimentary that they didn't even bother putting anyone in the truck. Look, it's empty. Nobody expected you to escape, least of all the developer. You've been dead for so long that the truck's become self-aware and started fleeing for its life. You follow the road, get a shitty epilogue, and that's it. You've beaten Red Lake. The war is over. And yet, I feel nothing. I feel no sense of accomplishment, because what is Red Lake on the surface? An unremarkable looking indie title hiding away on the Steam storefront that just so happens to contain some of the most unbelievably sadistic mechanics ever shat out into the world of gaming. How many other Red Lakes lurk within the thousands of entries in this accursed database? How many more will there be? Is true evil only worthy of its name until something even worse comes along? I dare not to even cast the ghost of a thought at what wretched form Red Lake's successor will take, but some horrible unshakable thump in my gut tells me that it is coming sooner rather than later. But on the other hand, fuck you, Red Lake! How does my dick taste, you miserable box of cockroach shit? I've heard it tastes good.